Okay, kids, part 3, negotiations. And today we are going to discuss choosing between multiple offers. I think it's really important to understand what happens in a multiple offer situation. So we are going to discuss it from the buying side perspective, because a buyer needs to understand all of the implications that go into the seller side of receiving multiple offers. What their perspective is, what their hope or outcome is of this situation. We don't know any of that information. We know that let's just talk about the parameters of it. Let's talk about what we know as a buyer. A seller is holding offers. I will remind you that it is up to the seller to decide whether or not to hold offers. That's one scenario. The other scenario is house has been on the market for 2 weeks. It was priced really aggressively and somebody put an offer in as an agent, that is a selling agent. As soon as an offer is received, we have to notify all the other agents and people that have gone through that there is an offer on the table to give them the opportunity to put an offer in. Then we get another offer. So there's 2 different scenarios as an example of how a multiple offer situation can occur. So here we are, we're in a multiple offer situation, and what happens is the buyer, note that your negotiating power has just diminished. Not necessarily to zero, but it is drastically diminished from a negotiation standpoint. So that makes it very difficult from your perspective. So you have to determine as a buyer, do I really want this property? What's important to me about getting this property? What can I afford? Did the seller price it according to market value? Did the seller underprice the property in order to invoke a bidding war? Because as you know, through COVID, we saw that all the time, and we would see house sold for $150,000 over asking. Well, I call bullshit on that. Excuse my language, because it was underpriced intentionally to invoke a bidding war, so it was a little bit unrealistic. When we got out of the COVID era and we were seeing homes priced properly again, one of the things that we kept happening as listing agents, especially if it was coming in from an out-of-town agent and they didn't have access to our database, they were looking at the information and going, my buyer can't afford to pay $100,000 over the $750 that you've listed it at. And we would have to not help them, but we would essentially have to steer them through the process, that if they were to look at the comps, of which they don't have access to, that they would understand that we've priced within market value. And again, as I said in my earlier videos, market value can end up being within a 5% range of sort of the median, I guess, if you will. So if we price something at $750, then we can sort of know that we'll be going from a 5% below or 5% above in order to achieve the ideal price. And ultimately, market value is indicative of what a buyer is willing to pay for it. Never forget that. So let's go to, from a buying perspective of, you are in a multiple offer situation. Number 1, it's my first phone call to the selling agent to ask what the seller is looking for. What are they allowed to tell us? What are the desired closing dates? They can't tell us the price point. Well, they can if the seller has agreed to release that information, but from a negotiation standpoint, I can assure you that that does not happen very often. So our responsibility to ask all of those questions: what is the ideal closing? Are we looking at conditions? Because if you're in a multiple offer situation, you end up again being at a non-negotiating position, because the power is in multiple offers, and then the power falls to the seller to take whatever it is that they're looking for. And this is what I want to put emphasis on. It's not always about money. So this is something that we need to determine. We need to determine, have they purchased another property? Do they have a specific date that you, my client, the buyer, can work within? First-time home buyers, man, they are in a power seat from a multiple offer situation, because outside of price and finance or home inspection, which I will add, in multiple offer situations, we are still seeing conditions such as finance and home inspection. So don't think that those have to be off the table, because they don't. But in a situation as a first-time home buyer perspective, you have a tremendous amount of power right now, because you're not competing against having to sell another property, which from a selling perspective, if I'm in a multiple offer situation, I am not, unless it's a ridiculous amount over and guaranteed sale. If there's a condition of sale of buyer's property, I would encourage my sellers to look at that seriously. So when you're putting an offer together, you need to consider all of the things that the seller would anticipate of a level of importance and address those first. So if the closing date is more important than the price, note that. If you can give them that, give them that. Give them as many things as you can, if you really want this house, that will appease the seller and make them want to choose your offer. This is where it comes down to us as the agents to negotiate and to establish a solid relationship with the other agent, so we can advocate on your behalf. Nothing would bug me more as a selling agent to receive an offer from a buying agent in a multiple offer situation where I never even received a phone call from them. They gave me, we were asking for a $20,000 deposit and they put $5,000 down. They chose a closing date that was completely offside to what we will be looking at. Always think of it from the seller's perspective. I'm just going to assume that the agent representing the seller is good. The process that we do is we essentially print out all of the offers and we literally compare the Schedule A's, the price points, all of the key metrics that are important to you as the seller. We compare all of those side by side. And I can tell you from experience, I have been in many situations where I've been in a multiple offer situation and the buying agent thinks it's all about the dollar figure. I've given them the opportunity. This is another thing that will happen. I've given them the opportunity to adjust their offer without giving them any information or what I've been advocated to say on behalf of the seller. And the buying agent has not chosen to do that. I've been in situations where my sellers have chosen a better closing date over money. And then when it came a few days after, when it was posted on the MLS or Matrix and the backside, the agent saw it, has called me up and screamed at me on the phone because why didn't my sellers choose her buyer's offer? When I gave her the parameters of what my sellers were looking for, and she chose not to change her offer, and my sellers chose another offer, that is a prime example of what can happen. It's not always about the money. So remember that, because one thing could be near and dear to somebody else. We never know the situation that somebody's going through. Could be divorce, it could be death, could be a birth, it could be a job change, it could be they have to move in and look after their parents and they have to sell their house quickly. There's so many variables that are so important to a seller, which is why you need to go in armed to the best of your ability so that we can get your offer accepted when you want to buy your dream home. So I hope that helps how to choose or present between multiple offers. It sort of does address both sides. And yeah, I enjoy educating you guys on this stuff. So if there's anything that you think you might want to hear, please don't hesitate to write it in the comments below and I will happily address it for you. Like and subscribe so you'll get the notifications of when I'm doing my next video. And I will have one more on negotiating an offer. Ciao for now. Peace out. Love y'all. Bye.